Not everyone on Saturday Night Live can stick it out like Kenan Thompson. From Robert Downey Jr. to the late Gilbert Gottfried, these stars had their reasons to leave SNL behind. Aristotle Athari may have lasted only one season on SNL, but he managed to make his mark with characters like the improv crooner Angelo and the android comic Laughingtosh 3000.
Look at my face, look at my vacation, look at my body.
Atari honed his comedy skills doing stand-up in Los Angeles, eventually scoring a role in HBO's Silicon Valley. However, he found it difficult to find screen time when he joined in 2021 for season 47, especially due to the COVID-19 pandemic precautions and the size of the cast. He explained on the Saturday Night Network podcast, "It was a very large cast. It was like 21 people in the cast. There's a finite number of spots that you can get for dress rehearsal. The table reads, I think at the time, they were difficult in a lot of ways because we were still masked and separated, and there were growing pains in that regard." Atari believes that he might have stayed if he were as connected as players like James Austin Johnson and Sarah Sherman, who also made the cast that year. He added, "I just didn't know anybody. I think that would have also helped a lot if I was familiar with some of those people." Robert Downey Jr. might have been immortalized as Iron Man, but the actor hardly had a metallic grip on comedy when he joined Saturday Night Live for just one season back in 1985. Back then, SNL was low in ratings, while NBC tried to retool a show that had seen better days a decade earlier. Enter original producer Lorne Michaels, who returned after a 5-year hiatus, bringing a fresh roster of players that included Downey. There was only one problem. Downey was too green a talent to take on something as frenetic as a weekly live sketch comedy program. The actor said in a 1991 interview, "I really learned a lot. It was also just crazy. I mean, I guess I was like 19 or 20. It was tough, and I learned a lot, and I don't complain on film sets nearly as much as I should because of that experience." The good news for the show was that the addition of cast members like Nora Dunn, John Lovitz, and Dennis Miller helped steer SNL out of troubled waters. By his own admission, though, Downey had nothing to do with that turnaround given his lack of grounding in improv or sketch comedy. Still, Downey remembers his experience with at least a little nostalgia. As he said on Off Camera with Sam Jones, "I would still say to this day that there's not a more exciting 90 minutes you can have, whether you are any good or not. It's just amazing." Saturday Night Live made the most of Donald Trump's turbulent presidential tenure, and cast member Alex Moffat was one player who relished that opportunity when he joined in 2016. Aside from playing President Joe Biden, the Chicago native and Second City alum was known for his particularly dim-witted impression of Trump's son, Eric.
Today, he sat through an entire meeting without doing the pee-pee dance.
And I had to go.
While his departure from SNL in 2022 was part of a grand exodus that included stars like Kate McKinnon and Pete Davidson, he was also less vocal than most of his cohorts about why he jumped ship. Moffat offered a couple of clues in the following year, one of which was his desire to do some live theater. He starred in the Broadway production of The Cottage, directed by Seinfeld actor Jason Alexander. Moffat also cherished the time it took the production to perfect the project. Moffat told the Broadway show, "We've rehearsed this play more than we ever rehearsed like a cold open, for example. This is a different process. It's a learning process for me too, and it's been a ton of fun." In comedy, timing is everything. The same apparently goes for what may seem at first to be a good career move, like when late comedian Gilbert Gottfried scored a spot on Saturday Night Live in 1980. It turned out to be a disastrous decision for Gottfried and the other fresh players, as it was the first season without executive producer Lorne Michaels and a returning cast from previous seasons. Gottfried told Joe Rogan, "The idea back then of Saturday Night Live with different cast members, now it's like the cast changes every 5 minutes. But back then, it was like, no. It would be like saying, like in the middle of Beatlemania, that, oh, we're getting 4 other guys to be the Beatles." It didn't help that the show's brain trust avoided taking advantage of Gilbert's wild antics that got him the job in the first place. He elaborated, "I didn't like the writers, and the writers hated me. One time, to prove how much they hated me, they wrote a funeral sketch where I was the dead body, so I just had to lie there in the coffin." The sketch served as a suitable allegory for the fate of that cast, as most of them were purged after that disastrous season. In 1995, Cheri Oteri joined Saturday Night Live at a very opportune time in the show's history. In response to dwindling ratings the previous season, producer Lorne Michaels got rid of the bulk of the show's cast, replacing them with Oteri and memorable players that included Will Ferrell and Daryl Hammond. Filling those voids meant that Oteri and company were entering a workplace far less toxic than previous seasons. She recalled on the Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey and David Spade podcast, "Everybody came in at the same time, and there was this appreciation and energy, and we just all hit the ground running. There wasn't anybody that was sitting around intimidating and wondering if you were going to take their spot or anything." Oteri thrived in the revitalized workplace, showcasing characters like the spunky cheerleader Ariana and the annoying neighbor Rita.
Okay, good. If I see that freaking skit one more time, I'm gonna put my foot through the TV.
5 years later, confident from being nominated for a Primetime Emmy in 2000 for her guest appearance on the sitcom Just Shoot Me and landing a role in the horror parody flick Scary Movie, Oteri left SNL with hopes of becoming a major star. Sadly, that prospect never truly materialized, as she settled for bombs like Dumb and Dumberer, When Harry Met Lloyd. Still, she's managed handfuls of TV cameos that include Curb Your Enthusiasm, Boston Legal, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and even the Broadway hit Musical, the Musical. Whether she's playing Elaine Bennis in Seinfeld or Vice President Selena Meyer in Veep, Julia Louis-Dreyfus has been one of the most recognizable celebrities on television over the past 3 decades. She's been so successful, in fact, that most people forget that she was part of the cast of Saturday Night Live for 3 seasons starting in 1982. However, Louis-Dreyfus remembers it well, and according to her, those years weren't particularly enjoyable. As she said on Radio Andy, "I didn't have tons of fun, but I did learn a ton. I was really super young. I was 21 and I went into it very naively." She elaborated that SNL was very much a boys' club at the time, recalling that it was difficult to get her sketches aired on the show. One saving grace was that her tenure on SNL enabled her to work with her castmate and boyfriend Brad Hall, whom she would eventually marry. Another fateful encounter was with writer Larry David, who would later co-create a star vehicle for the actress in the form of Seinfeld a few years later. Louis-Dreyfus has long been thankful for David's presence. As she put it, "He was there my 3rd year, his one and only year, and we bonded because he was super miserable and I was super miserable, and you know how misery loves company." For years, Saturday Night Live made waves for its irreverent take on culture and politics, but few players were as subversive as comedian Chris Rock, who joined the cast in 1990. At his best, his in-your-face delivery elicited hilarity and paranoia among unsuspecting viewers via characters like the black activist Nat X and the hip-hop host Onsky.
"Your mother's so stupid that she tripped on a cordless phone."
While Rock made a huge impact on the show after only 3 seasons, being one of the only black cast members made him a novelty that prompted SNL creatives to put him in stereotypical roles. Meanwhile, Rock admired the largely black-dominated cast of their rival sketch comedy show, In Living Color. Not only did the show's writers produce edgier comedy, but it featured players portraying more diverse characters. Rock told Marc Maron, "The people at SNL are the nicest people ever. I'm friends with everybody there." So it wasn't that. The reason for wanting to be on In Living Color was just hip, man. History showed that I had a sense of humor in me, but I was never going to be able to do that stuff at SNL. Whether Rock was fired or left SNL on his own accord is still debatable. Regardless, he managed to land a spot on In Living Color in 1993 for the final season before the series was canceled. Anchoring the satirical news segment Weekend Update on SNL seems like a pretty sweet gig. It's a job that turned Chevy Chase, Tina Fey, and Seth Meyers into household names, but former host Colin Quinn found that his time behind the iconic news desk left a sour taste in his mouth. Quinn told Howard Stern, "I should have said I can't do this. Whatever the energy was that I was bringing, I couldn't enjoy it. I loved my first 2.5 years of Saturday Night Live, loved it more than anything. And doing the update thing was just ugly." Quinn's unhappiness had a lot to do with the circumstances surrounding how he landed the coveted spot. Late in 1997, his predecessor and best friend on SNL, Norm Macdonald, was fired from the show mid-season after making one too many jokes about O.J. Simpson, so Quinn was ushered in to take his place. TV pundits often rate Quinn among the segment's worst hosts, in sharp contrast to Macdonald, who was frequently rated among the best. It turns out that this is a sentiment that Quinn wouldn't challenge. As he put it, "I feel like I even sabotaged it because I felt so guilty, even though I had nothing to do with Norm leaving. But it was still, wow, I'm taking Norm's thing after they fire him for this whole thing." Quinn left SNL in 2000, and he found more happiness injecting his comedy into Broadway productions.